Brett, go.
Okay, I forget what order everything is. I just wanted. It's amazing to be part of an organization like this where people like care. I've worked at a lot of different networks and whatever, and this is one where I it was kind of a chance encounter of meeting up with TYT, but it was just like the people are so cool that you just don't want to leave. That's kind of how I've stayed here. I mean, this right now is my 13th hour here today, and it's awesome. Same with these idiots who are waving their hands wildly. Some of them are just straight up lying. It's your 12th hour. Granted, I did do a puzzle for a while eating with Craig.
You stay busy.
I stay busy. But a couple things. Melly Bitch. I want to say a special shout out to Melly Bitch. Her daughter, and she's always very active, but I remember at one point this year during all the walkouts for the schools, Melly Bitch tweeted, and it was a different image before this. She actually talked to me. She's like, listen, I'm changing my profile picture. I just want you to know it's still me, because I had recognized the old profile picture. She's like, that's funny, my daughter was the only kid in her elementary to do the walkout. My hubby and I ended up on the news about it, but then she tweeted at me and I was just like, oh, this is awesome. And I wanted to mention it on the show because she's always mentioning stuff to us on the show. So I remember we did that. And she's great, and she goes through a lot. She has a lot of, she really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff about the opiate issue in America and whatnot, just through Twitter, which is amazing. So shout out to her. Also, Gabby Merida, everybody talks about. She's a very active person. She like watches my wife's Twitch stream as well as John's Twitch stream. Wow. But one of my favorite things that she does is she, in addition to really being active, talking to us all the time, she photoshops various figures from the progressive movement onto Star Trek characters.
Oh, that's
so here's some examples.
Oh, wait a minute, that actually, that's really.
Yeah.
I don't know if she does.
Wow, great job, Gabby.
And then here's another one. I was like, is that Mr. Rogers or something? And then I saw
Wesley Crusher. Nice call, Brooke.
That is decidedly.
That's Will Wheaton's character. I love when Picard would yell, "Get the boy off the bridge," which fits John pretty nicely.
And then there's been actually, when this first happened, there was someone, we were just on the show, and someone mentioned that they're a member despite like they're on disability and supplemental income disability. And it was $750 a month. So I, after the show, just wrote down a little message to myself, being like, people who are on $750 a month disability still are subscribers to the show, and it's just amazing to me. And every time I just go like, I want to take a nap at my desk. I look down and I'm like, you know what? I can kick my ass for a little bit longer today. So there's that, and not just one. Since then, there's actually someone else who was watching the show and mad that, like, not mad, but like, how? Wait, someone else does that? I do that, and so they reached out and told me that they do that too. So it's just like super inspiring, and all those times that anyone at their job gets a moment where they think, I don't want to work that hard right now. You just like, you see something like this, and you're like, that the least I can do is to work a little harder.
Yeah, those are great stories, Brett, and it reminded me of a couple of my own. So I remember during the Kavanaugh hearings, to your point about how Melly Bitch
so good.
Shared some of the hardships that she sees around her in her neighborhood or where she is and stuff. And a woman in her 60s emailed me during the Kavanaugh hearings, and man, it was a gut punch. And she told me the things that she'd been through and the sexual assaults that she survived, which were significant. Mm-hmm. And the most heart-wrenching part of it was cops busted in once to ostensibly to save her with her parents. And her dad instead told the cops to let the kid go and that it was his daughter's fault, and yelled at her. Oof. And she explained how times were back then and how common it was, and how seeing the Kavanaugh hearings and what had happened to Christine Blasey Ford brought a lot of that back. And so why do I bring that up? Because it makes us all, it's a funny way of putting it, but richer people in not in money, but in understanding, to that you guys share those experiences with us, and then you trust us to share those experiences. And I learn from those, and I grow from those. And look, I say it on the show all the time. The hardest thing in the world is to escape your own perspective. But through you guys being, in a sense, our eyes, ears, sharing your stories with us, well, then we grow, and we hopefully become a little bit better and a little bit bigger together. And so it's super important, especially if we're doing a talk show where we're telling people like, hey, here's the news, and here's what we think about the news, here's our analysis perspective. It's really important for us to understand everybody's perspective and not just our own. So that's why I want to thank you guys, and part of the reason we're doing this Thanksgiving show for you guys. And then one more thing was, a woman emailed me, this was a long time ago actually, we've been doing this for 16 years. We are actually the oldest show on the internet, which is kind of a funny, amazing thing. Yeah, so that started, the radio show started 16 years ago, the internet show started 13 years ago, almost exactly 13 years ago. And anyway, she said that she listened to us back then, and then she was really sick, and her somebody in her family would bring in the podcast somehow, and they would listen together, and then it really helped her to survive, and it made her feel so much better to hear it. And I have to be honest with you, it's a funny thing to say, but I don't know why, right? Like, it's because there's a lot of politics, and oftentimes I think those might have even been the Bush years, a lot of bad news, right? But the fact that she got joy out of it, the fact that it helped her, and that she felt better every time she listened to us, well, it doesn't get any better than that. So thank you guys for being part of this experience with us and for making it meaningful. And that's why I want this thing to work so badly. And you know, it's worked for 16 years, and we've seen a lot of people come and go since then. All anybody ever did was doubt us, and you guys to some extent, right? But we're still here. But it's always a struggle, as you know, as Bertie said when he was ending his campaign. The struggle continues, right? Although there might be new beginnings soon. And so, but we still do it. But at least we're doing it with you guys, and so that just feels great. So it's an experience unlike any other. And I worked in all forms of media, radio, TV, online, and we don't feel that connection in other places because this connection is real. You guys make this show possible, and you are the show. You're part of us, and you're the Young Turks. So thank you. All right, Brooke.
Me? Oh, whoa! I was listening to you. It was like I was like. No, I am incredibly thankful for you guys, and just even letting me. It's just, I don't know. I get to sit next to these really, really, really smart people every time I come in here, who for some odd reason that, you know, I feel like just the bubble hasn't popped yet. You listen to me, and it's weird, and that seems like silly, but so I'll tell a story. So when I was working in Philly, we did a story. It was right when Colin Kaepernick first starts kneeling. So I was a morning anchor there, and we start. There was a soundbite. It was kind of like an entertainment segment. It was a soundbite with Spike Lee, and he was saying, "Listen, regardless of how you feel about like his way of protest, this man, it's his First Amendment right. That's it. It wasn't an opinion. That was a fact. And you know, as a news anchor, that's where we're supposed to. That's our space, right?
Yeah.
And so after the meteorologist and me were kind of chatting about how, you know, Spike is right. And that's part of the conversation right in the early bits of the protest that wasn't really focused on. And we all got pulled into our boss's office after that because a veteran, a longtime viewer had called and just was not happy. And our boss, she brings us all in separately, but she was like, listen, that was inappropriate. That can't happen again. You are not allowed to say that. That is so offensive to some people. And I kind of pushed back, which is always a bad idea when it's your boss. But I was like, well, wait a minute. You know, I feel like we should just always be able to, like the rule should be, if it's a fact, we talk about it. You know, people don't think women should have the right to vote, but you would never side with an angry viewer if I said that on the show. But sometimes when it comes to like certain issues, it's okay to pretend that there are two sides. And she was like, maybe I'll bring that up at our next pointer workshop. But for now, like, err on the side of this, acknowledging this offends people. So that's where you should stand. And this is in like the 4th largest market in America, and saying this to a Black woman, like one of the only few at the station. And this is just the complete opposite place. And being able to be, like, I feel like just as a Black woman in general, like we have to beg for a seat at the table, but when you get it, you have to be quiet. You can't be a Black person, you have to be palatable. And so I don't have to be that here. And sometimes I'm too loud, and like I laugh when it's inappropriate, and like, but I'm still here for some reason. Like, it's like, I don't know, it's freeing and it's awesome, and I feel super blessed and like happy. And that, on top of that, I've made friends here. And I make friends that, I've worked at, we've all talked about, like, we've worked at so many different places, we've been in so many different places, and made, a few friends, really good friends at every station I've worked at, but not 20. You know what I mean? Like, I walk in here some days and I don't know where to start. Like,
I've seen you.
What do I do? So I'm really thankful for you guys. It's like more, it's nicer for me than
Thank you. That's super nice. I'm going to tell 2 quick stories about it. So we're a collection of misfits here, right? And we all have our different perspectives, but we're trying to do the right thing. So Ben Mankiewicz worked in Charleston, South Carolina as a local news reporter. And so his boss, to your point about bosses in local news, et cetera, sends him to cover a race conflict. Okay, and so he's like, oh, wow, this is really serious in South Carolina. So he goes down there, and it's a school bus, and he's like, okay, that's weird. But he's like, all right, maybe it's high schoolers or something. He walks in, it's 6th graders, okay? And the 2 kids were fighting, but it had nothing to do with race. One happened to be Black, one happened to be white, but it was like, put gum in my hair or something, like nothing to do with race at all. So he calls back to to the boss and says, it's just not a race thing. Like, I know that like that gets ratings and stuff, but it's not, it's just kids, right? And he's like, yeah, but could we find that angle? And Ben was like, no, we can't find it because it doesn't exist. And so that'll get you in trouble, but that'll also get you on the Young Turks. Okay. And just today, coincidentally, I know you're from Oklahoma, but I was talking to a state senator from Nebraska, and he's African American, and he says he gets in trouble not only with the Republican Party, but with the Democratic Party oftentimes in Nebraska, because he thinks that people don't understand the plight of young Black kids growing up in a part of Nebraska that is just totally underrepresented, and that nobody cares about and nobody fights for. And there's all this money swirling around in politics and in the state, and it goes to all the powerful and the rich and stuff. And he's like, well, I'm gonna fight for those people. And he didn't know about the Young Turks. We're talking about something that's policy oriented, right? And I was like, boy, have I got the right place for you. And I remembered your stories growing up in Oklahoma a little bit. And I'm proud that we're the ones who fight for those people who are underrepresented. And we do it together. So it's just all a big, long way. And I've now said this 1,000 times tonight, but corny as it might be, for us to thank you guys for making it possible. Because if this place really is something nice and special, well, it wouldn't have happened without you guys. So thank you. On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.